Welcome back. We are going to start off by looking at enabling budgetary control, which you would do. So you would enable budgetary control or implement budgetary control when there is a requirement for real-time spending controls on transactions amount. There are some considerations when you are implementing budgetary control. What is the level of control that you need for budgetary control validation? So how tightly are your funds controlled? Do you want to stop transaction processing if there is no budgetary or budget for a transaction, or do you want to just issue a warnings? What are your funds available? How much can you spend? So would you have a budget for the year for expenses and you can spend it at any time in the year, or are you going to be controlled by each month, for example? So you can decide on how much you can spend and when you can spend it, and then the level of detail for budget versus consumption, inquiry, and reporting. So for your reporting, what level of detail do you need to do all that reporting, and for your inquiries? So you assess your spending control and reporting needs and create a control budget with the budget dimensions and setup options selected for budgetary control validation. So budget and the funds available balances are maintained by the budget dimensions you select. So we choose a ledger, calendar, the periods that we are budgeting to, and the accounts we are budgeting to, our budget segments. Then we define our setup options, so our control levels, so how tightly are our funds controlled, where are we getting our budget from, our budget source, and are we going to have any tolerance within our budgets. There are other details that we have to choose as well. Budgetary control validation, there are a number of settings that will impact the budgetary control validation for your transactions, and these settings are enabled within budgetary control but also your control budget. So we have a control budget filter, which we are going to talk about very shortly, and budgetary control validations, again we are going to talk about it now. And the control budget filter works with a setting in our control budgets called project, and then with our control budget as well we can have sub-elemental rules which will impact the budgetary control validations. So for example, in your control budget you might decide that you just want to issue a warning if budget are exceeded, but for certain accounts you want to stop that transaction processing. So you would have your main control budget set with a control level of what we call advisory, and then you would set up some elemental rule to have absolute control over the accounts that you need to stop that transaction processing for. So that's all going to impact how the transaction is validated. But there is also something called the default date rule as well, which we will also impact it, and we will be looking at this as we go through the course.